Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 13, Text 7. Naschat chastreshu, nastak chaitreshu, sajeta, nastak chateshu sajata, no pa jivita, no pa jivita, jivaikam, no pa jivata jivakam, no pa jivata jivakam, vadavams, tejat, takan, vedams tyajet takan, paksham, kamcha, na, samshrayat, paksham kamcha na samshrayat, naskat trateshu sajeta, naskat chitashu sajeta, no pat jivita jivakam, no pa jivata jivakam, vadavams tejat takan, vadavekams tejat takan, paksam kamcha na shamshrayat, naskat chiteshu sajeta, no pa jivata jivakam, vadavadams tejat takan, paksam kamcha na shamshrayat, nasakshiteshu shajeta, no pajiveta jivikam, vadavams tyajet takan, paksam kamcha shamshrayat, nakatriteshu jajeta, no pajiveta jivikam, vadavadams tyajet takan, paksam kamcha na shamshrayat. So I'll go through the word for word now. Na, not. Asatchiteshu, literature like newspapers, novels, dramas, and fiction. Sajeta, one should be attached or should indulge in reading. Na, no. Upajiveta, one should try to live. Jivakam, upon some professional literary career. Vadam, unnecessary arguments on different aspects of philosophy. Tajet, one should give up. Takan, arguments and counter-arguments. Paksam, faction. Kamcha, any. Na, not. Samshrayat, should take shelter of. So translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Translation. Literature that is a useless waste of time. In other words, literature without spiritual benefit should be rejected. One should not become a professional teacher as a means of earning one's livelihood, nor should one indulge in arguments and counter-arguments, nor should one take shelter of any cause or faction. So I'll go through it, then I read a little bit, then you read a little bit. So translation. Literature that is a useless waste of time. In other words, literature without spiritual benefit should be rejected. One should not become a professional teacher as a means of earning one's livelihood, nor should one indulge in arguments and counter-arguments, nor should one take shelter of any cause or faction. So, purport. A person desiring to advance in spiritual understanding should be extremely careful to avoid reading ordinary literature. The world is full of ordinary literature that creates unnecessary agitation in the mind. Such literature, including newspapers, dramas, novels, and magazines, is factually not meant for advancement in spiritual knowledge. Indeed, it has been described as a place of enjoyment for crows. Tad Yasham Tirtham. Anyone advancing in spiritual knowledge must reject such literature. Furthermore, one should not concern oneself with the conclusions of various logicians or philosophers. Of course, those who preach sometimes need to argue with the contentions of opponents, but as much as possible, one should avoid an argumentative attitude. In this connection, Srila Madhvacharya says, Aprojayana paksham nasham shreyat. Projan pakshisham. Na vrita shisha banda krit. Na kodashina shastrena. Na virudani kapeshet. Na vyakya paya jivata. Na shidam shamsharet. Evam bhute yati yati. Tad eka sharana harim. There is no need to take shelter of unnecessary literature or concern oneself with many so-called philosophers and thinkers who are useful for spiritual advancement, nor should one accept a disciple for the sake of fashion or popularity. One should be callous to these so-called shastras, neither opposing nor favoring them, and one should not earn one's livelihood by taking money for explaining shastra. A sannyasi must always be neutral and seek the means to advance in spiritual life, taking full shelter under the lotus feet of the Lord. So I'll just read the translation again. Literature that is a useless waste of time, in other words, literature without spiritual benefit, should be rejected. One should not become a professional teacher as a means of earning one's livelihood, nor should one indulge in arguments and counter-arguments, nor should one take shelter of any cause or faction. Omagana Timirandasya Jana Jana Salakaya Chakshon Mulitanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastai Bhutali Shaman Kripamaya Dasmojite Namine Shastra Srilanka Nishka Se Daksha Krishna Paranana Padag Janam Tvam Kripala Dashika. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadara Shri Vasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hare Ram, 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 Hari Hari. So I've made a few notes to sort of help me deliver my interpretation on the verse. So, so when it says in the purport that indeed this ordinary literature has been described as a place of enjoyment for crows. Tadvyasham Tirtham. So that's taken from a really well-known and famous verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's the verse in question is 1.5.10, but I've actually written the translation of the verse out because it's quite an important verse, and it should be taken as a pair with the following verse 1.5.11. But these two verses, they're also reproduced later in the 12th canto, so that they're quoted twice in the Srimad Bhagavatam, so that they're quite profound, quite important verses for the understanding of Srimad Bhagavatam. So I'll just read the verses out. So 1.5.10. Those words which do not describe the glories of the Lord, who alone can sanctify the atmosphere of the whole universe, are considered by saintly persons to be like unto a place of pilgrimage for crows. Since the all-perfect persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode, they do not derive any pleasure there. So 1.5.11. On the other hand, that literature, which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the nature, fame, forms, pastimes, etc., of the unlimited Supreme Lord, is a different creation, full of transcendental words directed towards bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. So, like I say, that they're quite important verses for the understanding of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's quite staggering that these verses were first written down about 5,000 years ago, because they're so relevant today that it's just about impossible to express it. So later in the purport, Srila Prabhupada quotes two verses by Srila Madhvacharya. So last time I gave class, I was talking about Srila Madhvacharya. He's actually very highly situated in the Parampara. He is fifth in line in the Parampara. So he's a very important acharya, a very important teacher. And the actual oh gosh, I can't quite think of it at the moment. But anyway, the Brahma Madhava Gaudiya Sampradaya takes his it's called the Brahma Madhava Gaudiya Sampradaya because he's such an important figure in it. So anyways, this next bit's a quote from Srila Prabhupada, who was saying that one has to act in such a way that, in spite of being in the material nature, he is not affected by contamination. Although the lotus flower is in association with water, it does not mix with the water. So that's quite an important understanding, that in spite of being in the material nature, one has to be not affected by contamination. Chanyaka Pandit says, don't take an enemy leniently, always think of him as dangerous. So in Krishna consciousness, one of the main enemies is Maya. So Chanyaka Pandit is saying that we should never take Maya leniently. We should always think of Maya as dangerous. Maya is the enemy, so never think of Maya as not being very dangerous. So this verse is probably talking about literally that there's a useless waste of time, and Srila Prabhupada warns us about the false guru. Not to follow the false guru. But I've come across the false guru twice in the world of literature, and I can just talk a little bit about the instances where I came across the false guru. So when I was younger, I read books by this author who claimed to have been to Mexico and met a sort of a mystic shaman sorcerer there. And his books are all about the sort of his encounters with this mystic Mexican sorcerer. These books are really well known. They've sold millions and millions of copies. But it's recently come out that these books were concocted. Even though people might think that they're actually true, they're actually not. They're concocted. But it's really staggering that so many millions of copies of these books have been sold, and that people are thinking of them as being authoritative, but they're actually not. So people are looking for what I call the real deal in these books. Are not going to find them there. So I also read books by this person who claimed to serve in a frontline regiment in the Second World War on the side of Germany. But when his war record was later examined in light of his writings in these books, it was found that he never actually served in a frontline regiment. He'd actually never seen duty in the front line of the war. So that's another example of the false guru, because he's obviously concocted what is written in these books. But both these series of books, they're massively popular. You can find them in just about any bookshop on the high street. And I'll also give another example of a false guru who's concocted what is written down. So I'll name the supposed author. It's called T. Lobsang Rampa. So at one time there was a book published that was purportedly by a Tibetan monk, and that monk was supposedly T. Lobsang Rampa. But it actually came out later that these books weren't written by the supposed author at all. They were written by a group of people in New York who were claiming to sort of have knowledge of these things. But this is just another example of the false guru. And I'm sort of thinking that in the world of literature, you really have to tread very carefully. Prabhupada's saying that a person desiring to advance in spiritual understanding should be extremely careful to avoid reading ordinary literature. So I'm just trying to sort of to point out the sort of pitfalls of picking up literature and thinking that it's you're reading something that's you might think is true, but actually it's false. So on the other hand, away from the world of mundane literature, later on in this chapter, we're going to be introduced to a saintly person who has adopted the mode of life of a python. And this should be very interesting. And of course, this particular verse is aimed at delineating the activities of the sannyasi. And of course, if we need a sannyasi to set as an example of how to go about our path in Krishna consciousness, we have Srila Prabhupada. So I recently read that the greatest offense against the holy name is to think of the spiritual master as being an ordinary person. So this definitely applies to Prabhupada. We should never think of Prabhupada as being an ordinary person. And of course, Srila Prabhupada just gave us so many literatures and so many books to read, and gave so many teachings in such a short time. And of course, Srila Prabhupada warns us about a great many things, that one can be very well situated materially, but be spiritually bankrupt. He also said that if you die in the mode of ignorance, you lose the human form of life. Now, I remember when I read that, and I thought, well, that's quite frightening, really, because when you're out there in the material world, you're obviously going to fall into the mode of ignorance a lot. So I was thinking, oh well, crikey, this is terrible. If I died now, I'm going to use the human form of life, and that was That was just before I came to the temple as a full-time devotee. So, of course, Prabhupada also warns us that we never know the time of one's death. You know, the time of death, it could be just tomorrow, it could be today, it could be next week. We just never know the time of death. And of course, when we start out in Krishna consciousness, we really don't know the nature of the soul, do we? We're so confused about things. We have to do a lot of reading, and we have to listen to classes and lectures whenever possible. So I'll just quote a verse that refers to the position of the soul in Krishna consciousness. It's Dehino Smimyati Deha Kamaran Yavana Jara Tata Dehantra Praptir Diras Tatra Nuyamate. As the embodied soul continually passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, so similarly at death, the soul passes into another body. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. So, of course, that's from the Bhagavad Gita. It's referring to the position of the soul within Krishna consciousness. They're saying that this is the nature of the soul, that it passes into another body at the moment of death. So Srila Prabhupada also says that the conditioned souls desire to lord it over the laws of material nature. So it's a big mistake, a big fault in the makeup of the conditioned souls, the desire to lord it over the laws of material nature. So I'm just thinking of a few examples in which they do desire to lord it over the laws of material nature. So we've obviously got the meat industry. When I used to live in Leeds, there's a street called Hare Hills Lane, and from top to bottom, this street's just got, it's just got so many fast food joints on the street. Every 5 paces on either side of the road, there's like a restaurant or a takeaway advertising, fried chicken. So, if you walk along this road, you're thinking, I was thinking, where are all these chickens coming from? Because obviously, they're obviously factory farmed, aren't they? And if you look a little bit further into the life cycle of a chicken that's just bred to be slaughtered for its meat, you're going to think, well, this is terrible. This is absolutely abominable. The idea that these chickens aren't suffering, obviously they're suffering just so much, just to satisfy people's tongues because they believe that it's okay to eat chicken. So the next example that I'd like to give is cosmetic surgery. So that nowadays people are more preoccupied with their appearance than ever. I think, well, if you have the time to look at the figures or the facts, you'll probably find that the facts and figures are backing up the statement where I say that people are more preoccupied with their appearance than ever. People are trying to overcome the laws of material nature by trying to stay perpetually young and attractive through the vehicle of cosmetic surgery. But some of these people having the cosmetic surgery, it's going wrong for them. So instead of looking more pretty, they're looking more ugly. And this sort of shows the difference in outlook between the spiritual person and the person in material consciousness. Because the person in the spiritual consciousness will think that my body and my appearance is just a gift from God. I can use it. I can use it as it. When you dovetail your activities with Krishna, you find that you're more interested in using your body in service to Krishna than you are in sort of trying to get short-term material benefits from it. So a person in Krishna consciousness is likely to be sort of is more likely to be satisfied with their appearance, and more likely to sort of say, well, this is it, this is it, this is the body that God's given me. So let's see if I can make use of it. But whereas a person in material consciousness, they'll be thinking, well, great numbers of people today are just turning to cosmetic surgery, but obviously it's not really necessary, is it, to somebody who's in Krishna consciousness? But anyway, the people are spending, gigantic sums of money on their appearance. But so the next example I want to give of people desiring to lord it over the laws of material nature is that that of the Amazon rainforest, because climate change and climate change is becoming a sort of is becoming a reality. It's fast becoming a reality. So this climate change reality is it's being moved by a few factors, really, isn't it? By the sort of saying that the temperature of the world's rising. We've got an agreement, between the sort of there's a worldwide agreement that we're trying not to raise the temperature of the planet by more than 2 degrees centigrade. When they have what's called the climate change conferences, this is supposedly a goal of the climate change conferences, not to raise the temperature of the planet above 2 degrees centigrade. But the scientists are finding out that the temperature has already risen by 1.6 degrees centigrade. So when we sort of when we're tearing down the rainforest, that's going to contribute to the rising of the worldwide temperature. So scientists are saying that if it rises above 2 degrees centigrade, it's going to have really sort of deep and disastrous outcomes for the planet, because if it rises above 2 degrees centigrade, there's going to be melting of the polar ice caps, which is going to mean that people in low-lying islands are going to get flooded. Obviously, I'm not explaining this very well. Somebody who's well versed in the matter of climate change could obviously explain it much better than I. But I think perhaps you're getting the point that I'm trying to make, that all this destruction of the natural assets of the planet Earth are just going to cause widespread calamities for much of the population. So I'll pass on that one there. So so Srila Prabhupada also warns us of the whirlpool of life and death. Srila Prabhupada also warns us of the whirlpool of life and death, which is quite a strong metaphor, isn't it, really? Because if you get caught in a whirlpool, it's obviously not going to be very easy to get out of it. I've also read in a couple of places that the human body can be a great vehicle for crossing over the ocean of the ocean of birth and death, or the ocean of material nescience. But if you get caught in the whirlpool of birth and death, you're not going to be able to cross over this ocean. So I'll just give my Sankirtan realizations now. Apologies if you heard the realizations before, but through being on the Sankirtan marathon in December, I sort of got some realizations. So the chief realization is that there's always somebody worse off than you. Yeah, that's what I found out. There's always somebody worse off than you, no matter how badly you think you are. There's always somebody worse off than you. And you know, that might not be such a deep realization, but this realization means that there's always somebody who's worse off than you. It means that you can do what you're supposed to do, because those people who are worse off than you, they can't do what you're supposed to do. You know, so yeah, there's always somebody worse off than you. So never think you're being hard done by. You know, always think that there's a little ray of hope for you. Never take up a sort of a complaining attitude towards yourself. Always look for the little sort of little bit of happiness, a little bit of joy that you might feel. Just even when you're trying to do a really hard job, you know, you can think, well, you know, it's hard, it's difficult, but somebody who's in a worse situation than me, they're not going to be able to do what I'm going to do. Yeah, Prabhupada also speaks about making the use of a bad bargain in some places. Making the best use of a bad bargain. The best use of a bad bargain is to use it in Krishna's service. And Prabhupada also says that those who have a poor fund of knowledge take all the credit for their success instead of thanking the Lord, a symptom of the non-devotee class of men. So we can very easily see that in our day-to-day lives, that you know, people are you know, that they're making all these achievements, but they're thinking it's just down to themselves that they've made these achievements, they've made the successes. Whereas in Krishna consciousness, you can see that you can see Krishna, and he's maybe situated this person in a winning position. So so Chanyaka Pandit says that time is so valuable that if you pay millions of golden coins, you cannot get back even a moment. If you spoil such valuable time without any profit, just imagine how much you're losing. So Chanyaka Pandit is quoted by Srila Prabhupada in quite a few places, because he also, Chanyaka Pandit also says that the beginning of all wisdom is to regard other people's wives as being your mother. Regard other people's belongings as being no better than the rubbish thrown out on the street. Always treat people as how you'd like to be treated by them yourself. Yeah, I could give a little bit about discussing some of Chanyaka Pandit's sayings, but I think the time is against me a little bit here. So I'll just quote a little sloka that you know is perhaps useful in looking at these Bhagavatam purports and translations, and it's Raja Vija Raja Guyam Pravitam Idam Uttama Pratakhasaganam Dhamyam Sisukam Kartam Avayam. This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting and is joyfully performed. So that's a sloka from the Bhagavad Gita chapter 2:9. And the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is notable in its teachings about the Bhakti Yoga principle. But this sloka can help us when we look at the Shastra, because it's saying that the Shastra is the king of education. It's also the most secret of all secrets. One time the knowledge contained in the Shastra wasn't under very wide circulation at all. It was just restricted to a very small minority of people in India. But thanks to Srila Prabhupada's efforts, it's becoming much more widely known now. So, like I say, it's the king of education. It's also the purest knowledge. And it's also the perfection of religion. So we have to sort of keep this in mind when we're discussing the Shastra. I'll just pass on to this. This is also from the Shastra. It's saying that there's 4 defects of the conditioned soul's knowledge. The conditioned soul is illusioned. He makes mistakes. He has a cheating mentality and has imperfect senses. So the implications of this statement are really sort of deep reaching and far-ranging, really, because if the conditioned soul has these defects, so is his knowledge, and so therefore we can't trust the conditioned soul and its knowledge because of these defects. So we have to really put our trust in the Shastra, because the Shastra is free from these defects. Also, Vaisheshika Prabhu has 4 questions. He says we should always ask ourselves these 4 questions. We should always ask ourselves, what is our purpose? How can I be of service? What's the lesson? And where's the best investment of my attention? So it's saying if we continually ask ourselves these 4 questions, we can find success even in material life, even in the sort of even in the toughest situations that we might find ourselves in. So you know that before I came to Krishna consciousness, I used to like reggae music. I used to like this thing called Northern Soul music, but I'm no longer a follower of these kinds of music. So I'll just quote a little sloka that explains my position on this. It's called the sloka goes, Sarvapati Vina Muktam Pavatena Nimalam Rishikena Rishikesh Savanam Bhakti Uchite. So the purport of this sloka is that if we engage our senses in the service of Krishna, the Supreme Lord, who is the master of all the senses, our senses gradually become purified and we lose all material designations. So your material designation might be, you think of yourself as a Northern Soul fan, a reggae fan. You might think yourself as being, I don't know, you might think yourself as being a particular race. But all these things are going to change at the moment of death. All these material designations, these are all going to be stripped away from us at the moment of death. Then we're going to be left with just the position of the soul. So one statement concerning this is that what we have learned throughout our life is put to test at the moment of death. You know, everything that we learned is all the current learning that we have. You know, a person might have O levels, A levels, a degree, but all his learning is going to be put to test at the moment of death. And so you might ask, why is this? It's because we believe that, as I quoted earlier, in the Dheno Smimyati Deha sloka, the soul passes into another body at death, and our next body is determined by the karma that we have, the karma that we've accrued and earned in this life. So obviously this is a very serious situation that we're in. You know, the conditioned souls are thinking that that's it. When we're dead, we're just dead. Everything's gone, finito. But you know, this isn't the sort of this isn't the real position of the soul. You know, thanks to Srila Prabhupada bringing his teachings from India to the West, we finally gaining knowledge of the position of the soul in Krishna consciousness. Yeah, I can give a little tale about the power of prayer here. If that's okay with you? Okay, so this little parable goes. So once, say in America, there was a really sort of really high up cancer specialist. We'll say his name is David Jakes, Dr. David Jakes. So, like I say, he was a really well respected and really sort of highly revered cancer specialist. You know, he made treating cancer his life's work. He was you know, a real front runner in the treating of cancer. You know, he was a specialist, a really sort of highly learned specialist in cancer treatment. So so he decided to go to this conference on the treatment of cancer, even though we'll say that the conference was in Brazil, so he had to fly from America to Brazil to attend the conference. There was a problem with his plane on the way, so he had to touch down at this airport that wasn't quite where the conference was. So he was thinking to himself, when the airport came down at this airport that wasn't on his schedule, well, how can I get to this conference? I'm going to have to, the only way that I can do it is by hiring a car and driving from the city that the airport, when the planes land, to this city where the conference is going to be held. So anyway, he hired a car and set out for this other city, but on the way he got lost. He found himself, you know, he didn't know where he was at all. He was just driving for miles and miles, and he lost his way, and he was thinking, oh God, this is terrible. I'm going to be stranded in the depths of the jungle here. And so he was, you know, he's in a really bad state of mind. And eventually he came upon this little shack in the jungle. So he didn't know what to do. He said, you know, he was lost. He was in a very bad situation. You know, the petrol had run out in his car. He'd been stranded in the jungle. And so anyway, he goes up, gets out of his car and goes up to this shack and knocks on the door. And a woman lets him in, and the cancer specialist explains the situation. And the woman says, oh yes, you can come in and you can take shelter here. And, you know, so he's inside this shack. But he notices there's a cot with a candle, and the woman's kneeling down and praying by the side of this cot. And so the cancer specialist says, you know, I can't help notice, but you're praying. What are you praying for? So the woman says, oh, it's my baby. He's got this very, very, very rare form of cancer. You know, I won't be able to get it treated anywhere in Brazil. I'm scared that my baby's going to die. I've read there's only one person who knows enough about this type of cancer to treat him. That's Dr. David Jakes. So, you know, so what could the doctor do? But try and help this lady who'd taken him in the middle of nowhere when he was stranded. So that's my little parable about the power of prayer. You know, because you know, it worked for this woman, so it might work for you. So that's my class. So if anybody's got any questions or comments, you know, I'll try to answer them. Any questions or comments? A faction is like a side in an argument. If there's two opposing sides to an argument, the opposing sides are called factions. Yeah, a faction is like a tribe, or it's like a group of people. A faction is a group of people, really. Yeah, well, they'll have a particular mindset. Yeah, you might call them. Well, you call the Mayavadis a faction. So yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for your class. So, if everyone takes this process of Krishna consciousness and realize that what is our true identity, would that also solve like these global issues that we have? Like a climate change, poverty, and things like that.
Yeah, I think it most definitely would. It definitely would, because this is what Srila Prabhupada writes, that at the moment the conditioned souls bewildered by the external energy. The external energy is Maya, is bewildered by Maya, so he doesn't know what the real situation is. But in Krishna consciousness, we're not bewildered by Maya. We're connected with the internal energy of Krishna, which is the pure spiritual, not the pure spiritual energy of Krishna. So we have that on our side. So yeah, we'll definitely be able to fight poverty. Definitely, yeah, because there's such a big emphasis on the wrong way of doing things at the moment. The essentials of life are food, grains, wheat, all the things that we can grow. They're not, so in Krishna consciousness, the emphasis is on it's basically on feeding people. So the emphasis in Krishna consciousness is on growing crops, using the resources in the right way. Because all these goods that have been produced in factories, say, you can't eat them. People are starving to death in some parts of the world for lack of food. But we're more concerned with making things in factories. We're more concerned with what they call consumer durables than solving the world's hunger situation. So, yeah. So, so how can I explain this? So. So in that verse that I quoted earlier, that 1:5:11, it says that literature, which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, forms, pastimes, etc., of the unlimited Supreme Lord, is a different creation, full of transcendental words directed toward bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of the world's misdirected civilization. So if more people took Krishna consciousness, would see a revolution in the impious lives of the world's misdirected civilization. So yeah. So if anyone's got any more comments or questions.
Comment on these questions also. A lot of the ills that we see in the world today are caused by greed. Like you were saying, cutting down a rainforest, burning fossil fuels, poverty. There's enough resources in the world for everyone. Prabhupada gives an example that you don't see the animals out there toiling day after day. They survive for them, Lord, there's no shortage of resources, but because of greed, people want more, and people, certain people want more wealth, more power, whatever. So if everyone became Krishna conscious, then, our philosophy is that we don't want for ourselves, we want to help others, serve Krishna. If you serve Krishna, then everyone else becomes served automatically. So, so that's what I want to say. Is that, if everyone became Krishna conscious, then greed would go away. And greed is like the root of most of the problems in the world.
So that's it. Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Kodanitai Mayapur Sashi ki jai.
Yeah.